Hello, and welcome to the OMO Podcast. I'm Spencer Scott Holmes.
And I'm Ryan Dunnigan.
And we're going back in time with one of those like anime movies that would have came out when you only had few choices. But for some reason, I never saw this one back in the day. And I'm kind of surprised I didn't, because this would have been something I would have gravitated towards. But we're going with the Samurai Shodown, referred to as the motion picture, but it's the first anime movie based on the original game. And this was one of those ones just diving in. It's like, let's get into this. Samurai Shodown's always been a fun game. I'm never going to say I'm like totally an expert on it, but I've always really enjoyed it.
Samurai Shodown, because I'll be honest, SNK games, I never disliked SNK. I was just always more Capcom, And then in like the late 90s, early 2000s, Tekken here and there. And then Dead or Alive. But SNK, I always liked a lot of their character designs. And I would always play like Marvel, like Capcom versus SNK games at my friend's house. The kind of the jerk off Johnny guy who kind of introduced me to anime in the first place, And I would always like a lot of those characters and a lot of their designs. I just never really played a whole lot of like King of Fighters or Fatal Fury as much. But I'll say Samurai Shodown is always a game I enjoyed. I don't really know the lore or the characters that well, but the main character, Hamaru. I always thought he was one of the coolest, most well-designed samurai character in any game.
Oh yeah, no, he's totally cool. And I'm not gonna say this is a lot of the names, how they pronounce them and so on. It's one of those ones until watching this movie, like I really never kind of thought of like, oh, I guess that's how you pronounce these names and so on. Because I played this game, in Neo Geo in the arcades and whatnot. I had it on Sega Genesis, I have the one on PS2, and from here, here and there, I've had them in my fighting game collection repertoire. But like, it's one of those ones like, I guess it's like as much as I kind of played them, it's that thing that like I didn't get super into like what the story was and what the backlore was. And I'm gonna say this probably because I just never saw a movie. It's almost like the reason I feel like I know so much about like Street Fighter and their kind of stories and backstories and whatnot is like, well, you got the movie, you got the V series, you got the comic books, you got the mangas, blah 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 blah. There's a whole fat stack of so many things Street Fighter to kind of go on, and Samurai Shodown, Samurai Spirits in Japan, like it's one of those ones like, when it comes to the U.S., there's stuff there, but it's not like it's easy to find. Like I don't remember running across this movie like on Starz Action Channel like block, at midnight or something like that.
No, you would come across these things. Not like maybe this was playing like on HBO or Starz late at night sometime, but I remember coming across weird ones you wouldn't expect, like Appleseed or even Sonic the Hedgehog, or. Such a jump there, but I mean Sonic the Hedgehog, the '90s OVA,
yeah, the original movie,
or even I want to say maybe one of the Street Fighters. I don't remember which one, but I think maybe even Alpha. So this seems like something that probably would have popped up on one of those channels, but just I never saw it either. This is the first time coming across. I remember seeing it like, beat up VHS of it a couple times, like in Suncoast videos.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's probably where you would have been like $30 or something like that, and you've been like, oh well, maybe
$30 for an hour.
Yeah, maybe next time and so on.
Well, it comes with ads for other shit that costs $30.
Yeah, it's just like, well, we got you there.
That's your special features back then.
Yeah, that was all the special features you got. And anime's even still kind of like rare to find like good special features on. And mostly if there is, it's always like, here's the voice actors. It's like, well, they didn't make the movie.
Yeah, I mean, there would be sometimes. Anime never really had the greatest special features in most cases, unless it was some kind of thing. Like, here's like a 10-year or 15 or 20-year anniversary DVD where we went out of our way. And even then, it'd be kind of bare bones. But it's like, okay, you got an audio commentary. That doesn't happen too often, but yeah. It's always like the dubbers doing it, which that could be interesting in itself, but it's like, I rather hear like, I don't know, what Ono have to say? What the director have to say? It's kind of more of that,
Yeah, well, it's almost like, it's kind of weird when you think about it that like the dubbers like is a lot of times like what they kind of consider like the go-to, like, oh, they're the experts on it, but it's like They didn't write the story. They didn't draw anything. They didn't do any directing. They didn't put any of this together. Nothing like that. It's kind of weird. It's like, would you get like, hey, we're doing a Bruce Lee special feature. Why don't you get the guy who dubbed him in like the American like 1972 version or whatever? You like, would you get that guy as like your main like go-to for like the special features? That just seems like such a bizarre choice. I mean, that guy's probably not even alive, but
going for the Samurai Shodown, the motion picture. The dubbing in this, I know it's an early point. Dubbing in this is horrible. Usually I'm one of those people, I can kind of go either way, really. It depends on, sometimes a character's voice might be so grating, I'm like, I gotta go to Japanese or whatever. But I can usually kind of go either way majority of the time, because anime, most of the time, anime dialogue always comes out a little clunky either way, just because it's just a rough translation. Even if just reading it in subtitles still like comes off kind of like awkward, but it's still, nothing to dock it down for, just difference in language. But this right here, I was like, fuck, I wish there was a Japanese option. I was just watching this right on YouTube because I couldn't find it anywhere else, and God, it was so hard to watch in English. There's the ninja, like, what's Garland?
Hanzo?
Garland? What?
Hanzo? Are you talking about like the American ninja guy?
The American ninja, Gonzo's his name?
No, I think something like that.
Garland or something like that, whatever his name was. Did they get like an Owen Wilson impersonator for that fucking guy?
I have no idea.
Oh, hey, puppy, yeah.
Yeah, you always forget the puppy.
Yeah.
It's like I know that it has, because everything in like Samurai Shodown has almost like a complicated Japanese name to it. So that dog probably has a complicated Japanese name and so on. And they're just like
probably like rising sun, blade of fur, or some shit like that, and they just named him Puppy.
Yeah, they're just like, I'm just gonna call him Puppy and so on like that. And I'm gonna say it multiple times. I actually thought the dubbing was actually gonna be worse than it really was. I kid you not, though, because I remember like I heard that about it, that like they had like not that great a dubbing. And then I was like, maybe it will be kind of funky. I'm not saying it's good, but I didn't think it was actually as bad as I thought it was going to be. But maybe that's because I kind of was going into it expecting it to be really terrible.
I mean, let me get this part out of the way real quick. I wasn't really blown away by the movie. And maybe if I had more context for the characters and knew more about this series, I'd be more into it. Mm-hmm. That being said, I didn't dislike it. It was more of just kind of like whatever to me. I kind of enjoyed the novelty of it, and I can kind of see how something like this could be really cool and how it can expand and do more things. And I see the possibilities with the stories and the characters. But at the same time, even ones I like, there's like all like these early 90s fighting game animes. A lot of the times they have a very similar vibe to this, in which they only have really a cut. Now, this has more than just a couple of characters, but it does the thing where it's like, well, there's that character in the background. He's on screen for a second just so you can, for those people who like him, can be happy about it. And it just kind of has this heavy emphasis on one or two characters, and every other character is just bouncing around in the background.
Yeah, no, that is kind of true, because even like when you think of like one of the main kind of characters of Samurai Shodown, Nakaru, or whatever, the girl with the bird, like, she really is barely even in this. She's just kind of there, stand in the background, every once in a while says something, and that's kind of about it. And it's just like, you got this character that you generally would think would be being used like all over the place. And even like in the second movie of this or whatever, that's kind of like loosely connected. I don't even know if it's really the same one. It almost feels like sort of Street Fighter Alpha, if you're trying to make it feel like it's a sequel to Street Fighter 2. It's almost so different that you're like, it's not there. But I mean, she's almost like a main character in that one. It's just kind of funny how it is here. But maybe at this time period, they just, when there's kind of like the first game you're sort of basing it off of, I guess it's almost like an even playing field. And you're like, well, we got our main character and our main boss. We'll just kind of have everybody else sort of show up in between.
Yeah, because they have this whole thing where they're almost like a squad of fighters, and it opens up like, let me I got to rant for a second, and this is not really about Samurai Shodown, so, we sometimes like to go on IMDb and look up, like, fun trivia. Now, I'm not surprised there's not a lot on here. I'm going to read 2 bits of trivia on here, okay? One leads into where we're going to go from here, but first one, in the English dubbed version by ADV Studios, the blood has been covered silver, so it'll get a lower rating. But for some unknown reason, in 2 scenes, the blood has been left red. Okay, all right, yeah, fair enough. I kind of noticed that. That's a good point.
Yeah.
Here's the next one. prologue is set in 1639. The rest of the movie is set in 1739. It's like, what the fuck's that doing in trivia?
It says in the movie.
ADV
It literally
needs to
says.
have like
It says
you need a
100 years
license on.
later.
I'm sorry, but you need a license on IMDb before you can post this shit. I really think there needs to be like some kind of licensing thing or just some kind of intelligence test before they go and throw this shit on trivia.
Yeah, exactly. It's almost like one of those ones. Like, is there just like there's 10 open spots on like every movie, and if you happen to be there first, you can put any dumb fact you want on it.
Like, I don't understand. Like, I mean, I know that it's. I mean, not the end of the world or nothing, but it's one of those things. I guess like, well, I guess we had no other facts, so okay, we'll leave that one there for now. If anyone feels like putting another fact in there, 30 years later. But it's just one of those things. Like, it would like lately. I remember like the trivia on IMDb used to be like, oh wow, that's so interesting, but they're just letting anybody throw anything up on this fucking thing now. So now I'm like, I don't know if I could trust even the interesting things I read on here.
Yeah, because some people just put some dumb stuff on there and whatnot, I don't know. Hopefully at some point it'll get to a point where it's a little bit more, like, filtered out and so on, but
yeah, like, it opens up in 1639, is the trivia says, and then they get killed by, like, a witch lady or something who betrays them, and they're like, oh, wow, they're just opening up on that? And then it's like, jumps years later, like, oh, people can be reincarnated if their spirit is strong enough later on the line when the time comes.
Yeah, which I guess makes more sense in, like, the Japanese style, where it's like they call it samurai spirits. Well, that reminds me of those ones, like, in America. It's like, no, you're in America now. Ain't no spirit. Like, like, oh, look at me, I got my spirit animal or something like that. No. America, it's a showdown. And you know what? It's such a showdown, we're going to take the W off the showdown.
He's just like, look, we don't believe in spirits. We don't believe in, like, crystals. We don't listen to NPR or none of that shit. It's a showdown.
Yeah. That's what we're all here to do, is watch the people swing some swords around like they got their dicks in their hands. You know what I mean?
This is SNK of America saying that.
Yeah. Just like, boy.
How'd this guy get a job here? Well, he just kind of walked in and started making demands.
He was literally the only one that showed up.
I don't think he's ever played a SNK game, but whatever. He's the only one that showed up, so here we are.
Yeah, so they got that. I kid you not, though, this is one of those animes, though, when watching it, though, if I would have watched this, like, in the 90s, like, when I would have ran across things like Street Fighter 2 and the Tekken and the Fatal Fury and all that kind of stuff, I think I would have had, like, this would have blown my mind. Because, well, I mean, at that time period, anything that was anime would have blown my mind, but because there just wasn't enough of it yet.
Well, there'd just be a few swears and some violence. Like, they can't do that on ABC one Saturday morning.
I didn't see that on Doug last week.
Yeah, they left that out of Pepper Ann. So, it'd be one of those things where from there, that'd be enough to impress you. But, watching it, I mean, it was... I kind of enjoy it more for the novelty. I don't want to sound like a dick, but more for the novelty. And I could see... I kind of want to still play the new Samurai Shodown game that came out like this year or last year, whenever it was.
Yeah.
I'd still like to check that out. Because I honestly think there is more you can do with these characters. But this also feels kind of like the studio making it. I feel like it kind of goes by like what a lot of studios at the time were doing. A lot of anime studios where they're just like, well, we just... got the license for this thing to help push the game, so I guess try and find a way to get everybody in there and just keep it moving along.
Yeah,
doesn't really matter if they have a big part or not. They're just there,
Yeah, just get them in there. Well, it even has like sort of like almost like a Seven Samurai kind of vibe is sort of what they're going with in this. It's like Seven Samurai reincarnated, like, except for they get back to like, hey, there's only 6 of us. Oh, geez, what are we gonna do? Like, well, we can't do it. There's like the one like Chinese guy is like, well, we can't do anything now. There's only 6 of us. I'm gonna give up.
I was gonna say, I thought it was funny when like, there's only 6 of us, and then he looks at the dog for a second.
Well, I will say that there is some good moments of, like, comedy in here. Like, I definitely had a good chuckles, and that was one of them. When Hamaru's looking down, like... Because that's the thing, is, like, it's almost like the 6 of them, or, like, 5 of them get reincarnated, and they all like, oh, hey, we got our memories reincarnated too. And somehow Hamaru becomes kind of like the Goku, and when he's reincarnated as like, I don't know, the baby, he just gets like dropped on his head somewhere off in the woods with a samurai sword. And this lady finds him.
Don't need
like,
this.
Yeah, exactly. And this lady's like, huh, that's strange. I guess I'll just take this home today.
And
raises my own
down here.
So he just lives in a village and whatnot. He just seems to like be he's just the buff guy of the village, just walking around, you know, fighting animals, murdering like bees. He literally does like a bee genocide in here.
Well, I thought it was like the opening with him just being kind of a slacker. I kind of got total like 90s kid vibes, like just kind of like slacker, lives at home, going out, starting shit, comes riding in a skateboard into the house, like, hey mom, what's up? Like,
he's like 35.
Exactly, he's in his 30s.
She's like, when are you gonna get a real job? Dude, mom, I got a real job.
When are you gonna
I was slapping bees today.
And I was wrestling a bull.
Yeah.
God, mom, get off my dick.
Yeah.
Hey, by the way, did you record Liquid Television today? Like, you're home. You can watch Liquid Television now. No, Mom. Ren and Stimpy and Liquid Television come on at the same time. I can't make that choice.
Mom, you gotta record it. If you don't record it, we can't watch both of them. You know, and he's like, hey, Mom, did you go to town to get more sake? No, we're out of sake. Oh, jeez, Mom. Like, you got one thing to do today, and you screwed it up. Typical mom.
Here. I'm just gonna leave all these signs of the dojos I fought right here in the room. You can pick that shit up, right?
I even just
make skateboards out of them later.
I even like the part too where like the mom's like, oh well, there's a job that I just saw where like there's a wild bear out there that people need kind of hunted down so they can be protected. He's like, awesome, I'm gonna take it on stuff. He's like, what's the prize? And just like, oh well, yeah, they're just giving away someone's daughter that you can marry. He's like, oh bullshit, I ain't doing that.
No woman could tie down this man.
Yeah, well, and by the way, you're out of sake again. Later!
You can't cage a wolf, Ma.
Yeah.
No, I was gonna... That part right there, like, what's my payment? Woman. Nah.
Man, it's like, well, they practically give those out down at the mall. Just one of those ones where it's just like... Not good enough for him, but I almost like all the Hamaru stuff like more than probably like anything else in the movie.
They picked the right character to focus on, but I could probably get more into like slacker Hamaru for like the whole movie. That's just what the whole movie was. Like we have this big epic opening, and then like but they never found him. So this great warrior who's prophesized to be just stayed like an asshole living on the couch at home, never moving out.
That's almost just a cool story concept in general. I like the idea of like, it's almost like there's that chosen destiny one, but they just never could find him. And that's just almost like where that part ends and another story begins.
I think that would be a good idea for a story right there, but... Like, I also think, I do like the idea that he's going around to different dojos, fighting people, and just taking their signs. Like, I beat you, so I'm taking your sign, just like that. I thought that was kind of a cool concept, but once they do the whole Luke Skywalker thing, like, my village was killed, and I gotta go get revenge now.
No, not my mom! Who's gonna pay
the TV?
Who's gonna pay the bills?
Like, that whole part, like, I get that. I get you gotta give him a reason to leave the house and all that, so I get why they did that. But at the same time, I'm also kind of like, after that, it's just like, because he's surrounded by all these people who are just like, hey man, you're part of a legacy. You got, I don't know, you don't have all your memories back yet, because you got Goku or whatever. Or Iron Giant, take your pick.
Yeah.
But we gotta go and do the right thing. I'm gonna go do it myself. Like the rest of the movie, up until maybe the last 10 minutes, is them being like, dude, you can't do something. I'm gonna do it myself. Like, hey man, we're here. Fuck, he's still running. He's still going at him. He's getting his ass kicked. Yeah, he's getting his ass kicked. All right, let's stop. He's almost dead. Okay, like for the next rest of the movie, that's all he's doing. And it's not until the last 10 minutes, until we work together, Yeah,
then he realizes it, like, okay, there's no I in team. He's like, my mom used to always tell that to me, and I just thought she was just making shit up.
There is a U in Hamaru, though. Maybe like 2 or 3. I don't know. I never learned how to spell. But
you know, why spell when you're this cool?
I mean, I still really liked Amaru's character. I mean, not like, even like, not sure how accurate it is to the game or not, but just I don't know. It's such a time capsule of just the slacker 90s guy. I mean, I know it's not meant to be the 90s guy, but it has that vibe. Like, I could definitely, like, I just really like the idea of, like, this badass who can do anything, but he'd rather just, like, you know, slap bees away.
Yeah, just hang out the village and whatnot, you know.
There's all those kids,
Flip through the Kabuki channels and see what's on.
Well, apparently, also there's those kids. Apparently, like, his neighbor, he's like Brock. He has like 15 fucking brothers and sisters, and those kids those kids are so annoying, and their voices like, hey, there's the way they said hornet's nest. Tell me if you caught this. They said there's a hornet nest.
Well,
did you catch?
I think ADV is another one of those like Canadian companies, so they got the funny. Almost like the funny voiceovers sometimes that like just almost don't work, you know? And they always have the weird pronunciations of certain words. I hate to kind of throw them under the bus, but like I can always feel like I could tell when it's not like a straight American company or something like that.
If it's not like, or like if it was like entertainment for kids and they're grabbing rice balls, like, who wants a fucking donut?
Yeah, like kids are fucking stupid in America. They're not gonna know what this is. But we can most likely just say it's a Christmas turd and they'd believe it.
And then, like, there's the whole thing where those kids, like, they come in, when the big fat guy with the chain comes in and kills the whole village, I was like, okay, it means the kids are probably dead too. That's good, because those kids just annoyed the fuck out of me. Like, there's a
hornet's nest over there.
I stabbed a baby, and like, all right, just stop fucking talking. All right, yeah, I'll go kill all the hornets if it makes you shut the fuck up.
Yeah, I'll go on the hornet genocide and just go on the murder spree. Hey, Homebrew, like, isn't that how like we get our like, you know, see or get everything pollinated? Oh, I don't know, shit, I didn't go to school.
Not my problem. And then like after all that shit, kids like, oh wow, he's so cool, he's so neat, you know, like, oh yeah, that's great, I'm gonna go do my own thing for a little while. And then when they have the whole like village genocide thing, I couldn't help but feel like there's like one lady they had screaming. This goes back to the bad dubbing. There's like one lady they had screaming there, and it sounded like the R2D2, like, whoa!
Like when he gets blasted in space.
Yeah, like it repeated a few times. Like, ah! Like, oh, I guess there's murder happening. And because it was like that scream 3 times, overplayed by very distant screaming somewhere else, like 3 area codes over, you know?
Yeah, exactly. Just destroyed it and so on. And that's just when you get some of those other characters coming in there causing, like the big, huge, fat guy I always kind of think about, you know, he comes on in, and then they also got, who's the other character that comes in right there that,
the Green Goblin looking thing?
Oh yeah, that's the claw, like the little Freddy Krueger looking claw thing. You know,
every fighting game has to have the Voldo character.
Yeah, you kind of get that or the Blanca character, depending on how you kind of look at and so on.
I like to think of him as like the Voldo character, because Blanca I like. Blanca's like the one where he's not like important to the story, but he's visually cool. Mm-hmm. Where you got I'm gonna say. I mean, I like one of these characters. I don't like the other. I like Doslim, but at the time, I guess you'd say he was kind of the Voldo character. You know what I mean? Because he was kind of he had the weirder, more obscure kind of fighting style.
He had the stretchy arms and so on, and he was doing the contortion and like the yoga stuff.
He's way cooler than Voldo, but he kind of gives me like he's that kind of character, like the obscure kind of fighting style and a look that stands out among other characters. Mm-hmm. And the green guy, I can kind of see what you mean by the Blancaness, but I see him more as kind of like a Doslim or Voldo type character in a fighting game.
Yeah, well, because I always feel like, you know, it's like when you kind of have your fighting game roster set up, you know, you got to have the cool guy, got to have like the girl, the strong guys, and so on. But there's always got to be a couple of like I always kind of almost like the weird characters, or sometimes like the freak characters You know, in this, you know, because there's always somebody's like, man, I like that character. He's just super weird. He's super out there, and like that's who I want to be. You know, and you just got to kind of have that in each one.
Wanna who I feel bad for? I feel like every I guess this restricts primarily to like 90s anime adaptations, but I feel bad for people who like the big, bulky, heavy hitter characters, because those characters are either like out of there in a minute, or they like die horribly. Like there's got to be people who are good with the fat chain guy from like Samurai Shodown. Like, oh man, my guy went out like a bitch. But then you also got people like, oh, I really like Zangief. Zangief's really awesome. But then you see Street Fighter 2, the movie, and he's just kind of like fighting Blanca in the background. That's all he does, you know?
Yeah, exactly. Well, it's like those ones. Like Zangief's always been kind of like one of my favorite characters to play as in Street Fighter 2. Because every once in a while, it's like I always kind of like some of those big characters like that. Some of them are just almost too slow, but then other ones like they got that power and so on. But yeah, and I mean, I get there's only so much screen time, you know, and you got sort of your main characters, and I get that. I mean, it's one of those ones you ask yourself this: is it better that they're in the movie for at least a moment than not at all?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's true. I guess depends on what we're doing by that point, but like I'm thinking there was like characters in the I know you really like this movie a lot, but there's the live action Dead or Alive movie. And their characters, they're just there to like throw a punch at a screen or see them on like the like, oh, we have a little like scanning procedure going on, and then like there's the Jackie Chan drunken master guy, I forgot his name. Like, oh, he's in it. Like, oh, he's not in it. Never mind.
Yeah, like well there's like one or two characters I think that just appear like
Hitomi.
Yeah, I think Hitomi. I don't think they show her, but her name's on like the screen. You know, there's a few, and I get it. Once again, that movie still gets a lot of characters in, but there is just a couple that's like, yeah, that's all they're gonna get. But I will still say I would rather have that than not at all.
Mm-hmm. Well, at least don't kill them off, and like, you know,
oh yeah,
like X-Men movies were notorious. X-Men movies were notorious for here's this character for a second, then dead like almost immediately.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Don't do that. But it's almost like, hey, especially if you know that you're either gonna kind of like maybe build to a sequel or something. Just I mean, even do the Street Fighter 2 thing or like the Street Fighter 2V thing where it's just like, hey, is that a Kuma stand in the back there at like that airport?
Yeah.
We're not gonna bring really any attention to it. It's just gonna be like, where's Waldo?
Is that Akuma in prison for a second? How do you get?
How'd he get in there, and then how's he gonna get out? Well, I don't know. That's a movie in itself.
Does that little like phase thing, the thing through the wall or whatever?
Yeah. I guess it wasn't that tough for him to get out of there. But as like you get back to Samurai Shodown and whatnot like that, they kind of once they sort of form, you know, the Warrior 6, I guess, because it's not really like a Magnificent 7.
I think the idea of the Magnificent 7 being or the 7 Samurai thing sounds pretty awesome. You know what I mean? Just if you were gonna do like another like stab at a Samurai Shodown thing, like live action or animated, I think approaching it like this more like the 7 Samurai, but giving it higher stakes would be a good move.
Yeah, well, because, you know, the one thing I think this anime is kind of missing is, okay, we got Hamaru, and he's like the only character that we really get to see the background of. Everybody else somehow, some way just kind of ended up together and like, oh, you remember who you were? Yeah, I remember who I was. Oh, okay, cool. Let's go out and do this. But it's almost like would be neat if you just started with one character, and then he had to go find the rest of them to defeat, you know, the evil lady.
Yeah. And I know that's probably a little harder to do that with only an hour runtime, but at the same time I feel like there's ways to get a little bit more of that vibe though, you know. I'm gonna say I still think if you do make a live action Samurai Shodown movie, it should be Japanese, but at the same time it's a very like diverse cast, and I think that right there you probably could get more asses and seats with that, at least. You know, if you just like, oh, it's not just a bunch of Japanese guys that Americans don't know. There's some Japanese people, but then maybe you can get some, I don't know who you'd get to play the American Ninja or Charlotte, but then there's other characters that you could there's like the big, isn't there like a big Indian guy or something?
Yeah, there's like the guy who's kind of, it's like he's like a Native American guy, but I don't think he's like Native American from like the U.S. or anything like that. I think he's just supposed to be like fictional island native stuff. Because the weird thing about
Or
Samurai
like
Showdown,
fictional Samoan kind of thing.
yeah, like I don't know if he's Samoan, but probably some mysterious island out, in the Philippines or something like that. Who knows, one of those. But like they kind of
Rock could play him. Rock could definitely play that guy.
Yeah, there's all kinds of like kind of neat characters from around the world. Because that's the thing is like it has that like heavy samurai Japanese look and so on, but then it's still got that worldly kind of vibe too. Just like everybody shows up to Japan instead in it and whatnot. So I feel like, yeah, there's definitely all this place that you can kind of do if you want to do it live action. Or it'd be neat just to even see just a real dialed in like longer version anime movie and whatnot. I mean, I almost said Seven Samurai.
I'd take that too.
Yeah. But
I was just jumping to the hardest option first for some reason.
Yeah, well, I will say, these are like the kind of movies, though, that I think would work in live action. Now, there has been some SNK live action movies, and I remember, like, some of them were like, I remember there was, like, a King of Fighters movie, and I remember watching that. I was like, man, I was so excited for it, and I was just kind of going, like, what the hell am I watching here? Like, one, there's not really that much martial arts, and, like, I barely even recognize any of these characters. Like, you're not going to get, like, your literal main characters out of King of Fighters, and where's Terry Bogard, if anything? Come on. Like, you're trying to sell this, right?
So there's a King of Fighters movie, and for some reason they didn't have one of the most iconic characters in a fighting game in there.
The best way I could, it was in about the category of Legend of Chun-Li.
Well, it sounds like it. I mean, okay, if Legend of Chun-Li, if you're saying, I'll give Legend of Chun-Li this. It was a ballsy concept. The idea of like, look, we're going to start off focusing on one character and other characters from the game pop in there, but it's focusing on this character. Next one, we're going to focus on that character. It's a ballsy concept. It's just too bad the movie was just straight ass.
Yeah.
That's all it is, So, and it's like, I think that movie also had like roughly 6 characters in it and didn't really utilize them all that well. But, It seems Chun-Li, I mean, she never really wears like the blue outfit so much. It's kind of there. Mm-hmm. But if you're going to make a King of Fighters thing and you don't have the guy with long blonde hair and the red hat and the red jacket, what the fuck are you doing?
Yeah, it's literally like one of those ones where it's just like, you got to kind of have some of your main characters in here. And I felt like, God, I almost want to say, I can't really remember who exactly was in it because it's been like 10 years or so since I saw it. But it's one of those ones, like, I just don't remember it having really any... It had, like, maybe one of the main characters, but it's, like, really didn't have, like, any of, like, the main kind of Art of Fighting, King of Fighters type characters there. And it was just, like...
Was it, like, Kaio or something like that?
I want to say Kyle wasn't even in it either. I don't think any of those guys were. So I thought it was, like...
Kaio is, like, one of the characters that's so easy. Like, you don't need to go out of your way to make his costume look like him. You just got to get, like, an Asian dude in a... like black leather jacket and a white shirt and you're done.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It's like so many of those ones, but yeah, it's just kind of a bummer. Now, I'll say this, if they made a Samurai Shodown movie and they kind of did it like they did the Rurouni Kenshin live action films, that would be pretty sweet because those things were done good.
I only have the first live action Rurouni Kenshin movie, but I loved it. I want to see the other two. But
yeah, I watched all 3 of them and they were all amazing.
Well, that's the thing about... Because I remember watching the anime and liking it, but... like I loved it when I was younger, but then when I got older, it didn't really hold up as much. There's a lot of those tropes, and...
It's got kind of a funky dubbing, too, in the original.
That, too? Yeah, it definitely has that, too, but then... what I liked about... maybe the manga was different, and I think it's more inspired off the manga, but what I liked about the movie, the live-action movies, it felt kind of like, all right, yeah... We're going to follow it pretty closely, but at the same time, we know the audience got older, so we're not going to try and dumb it down for kids.
Yeah, and I think that was kind of the nice thing about it, is they did it right in that way. And, well, you know what's always like, I always feel like the best version of Rurouni Kenshin, if you want to kind of go back, and this one was one I'm actually surprised we've never done the podcast, but is the Samurai X, like the movie one.
It's a little melodramatic at times, I think, but I think it's just meant to be that old-timey, like, samurai movie kind of thing. I think that's what it's going for. Maybe if I watch it in Japanese, I'll be honest, I know that one more from the dub, but watch it in Japanese, I bet you probably lose some of that vibe, the melodramatic dialogue, possibly, but that one is really good. And that was actually my first introduction to Kenshin, so watching Samurai X... and then seeing Rurouni Kenshin, I'm like, what the fuck happened? Not knowing Samurai X was a prequel, not the other way around.
Yeah, well, yeah, because the tone's so different between those. But I just thinking for going back to Samurai Showdown, like that's almost like a way if you did kind of want to do it again too, I mean, it'd be nice to see those SNKs kind of get kind of almost a new fresh take.
Get your kind of like I mean, why not by this point? We already have so many like Avengers and DC, like Marvel and DC like crossover movies, and now King Kong and Godzilla are doing that. So why not do something like that with SNK characters? I mean, I think that you could probably do like there's time because there's games where like Hamaru and Terry fight, right? There are those SNK games where it's just all their characters in one.
Well, because that's what King of Fighters kind of is, because that's like the original Smash Brothers. Now, generally, it mostly
that's your Avengers right there.
It generally doesn't have Samurai Showdown characters in it, because since it's modern time and Samurai Showdown's olden time, but like that was the first one where they're like, hey, we got Fatal Fury, we got Art of Fighting, we're throwing some new characters in there. Hell, let's grab some of our characters from old SNK games like Akari Warriors and so on. We'll slap them all in there, and then we pretty much have the original Smash Brothers. Because that's the thing about SNK is SNK did a lot of like the forerunnings for like video games that they almost don't get credit for. It's even things like, Samurai Showdown, like that game itself had all kinds of like, you had like the specials in it. It had even some kind of like ways that like certain weapons, because you had swords and so on, did more damage. Like there was just all these kind of things that like at the time period, the only other thing you really had to compare it to was like sort of like Street Fighter 2, and Fatal Fury and whatnot. And some of the things that like it did was way advanced. And even I remember in the second one, it has parries in it like Street Fighter 3. Or Third Strike kind of era, like, so there is so much stuff that it kind of did, and why not even kind of have, like, I mean, SNK I feel is, like, set up, I mean, like, their stuff, it would be set up well for, like, some movies. I think Samurai Showdown would make an awesome one. I mean, you got Metal Slug, why not even use that, like...
There's your over-the-top, like, action one right there,
yeah. Yeah, I mean, I know that, like, it's always been kind of, like... I kind of hate to say it, but SNK's kind of been like at not the bottom of the barrel, like in a bad way, but it's always been kind of at the lower rung. It's not people are like, it's not Capcom, it's not Konami, you know what I mean? It's not, Namco or any of those other companies. So like, it just doesn't seem to get that same kind of credit that the other ones do. But yeah, no, I would love to see some more stuff of Samurai Showdown story-wise kind of come out.
Oh, going back, this is a little off topic, but kind of still in the realm of SNK. I went and looked up the King of Fighters movie you're talking about. Mm-hmm. But Inkayo is in it.
Oh, is he in there? Okay.
Want to know the name of the guy that plays him though?
Who?
Sean Ferris. You have a character named Kaya. I'm not trying to get all like typical American whitewashing. I'm not trying to get on that whole thing, but really, Kaio Kusanagi, and you got a guy named Sean Ferris playing him.
Yeah. Yeah, that sounds about probably right there.
Terry Bogard's in the movie too, apparently, but I guess God knows who he was. He already looks like an older guy with a beard, like on here. So,
well, I kid you not, it was literally one of those movies that when I watched it, like I could not make heads or tails of like who anybody was. So I'm not saying that there probably wasn't real characters in there, but I just remember like nobody looked like anybody. Like it's just one of those ones. Like I was just so lost in what was going on.
Whew. I'm just looking at. I looked up Terry Bogard from the movie. It looks like a guy in his late 30s, early 40s, cosplaying as Marty McFly.
Yeah, I'm just kind of looking up right now. I'm like, I see that. Yeah, there is a ton of characters in here, but like, yeah, they just don't look at all like the characters in the game. Plus, the worst part too is it's like it's made in 2010, so it's got that sort of like they're going for like that X-Men vibe where it's like, well, we can make it all dark and black, and nobody has to have their actual costumes. It's still in like that kind of like era.
It worked for Batman. Well, Batman's already really dark and black and gritty, so.
Well, the thing about Batman is it doesn't matter what it is. Like his costume's very like. Almost like if they were gonna sort of like X-Men Batman, they would probably take the cowl away from him. You know what I mean? Like if you really wanted to minus out, but like all you gotta do is leave the cowl there, and that's Batman. It doesn't matter what color you make his suit or anything like that. He's still always gonna look like Batman.
There had to be a variation, like early on when they're talking about making a Batman movie or something. Like, is there a way we can make the movie where he doesn't wear the suit? That had to come up in conversation with some studio exec. Like, okay, I'm outnumbered. I'll step away.
Yeah, because that's that time period. But that's what I remember about watching that movie. As I said, I just remember watching it and just being like, I don't know what's going on. There's not a whole lot of action. None of these characters look like anybody I can even recognize. Yeah, it was. Yeah, I was so bummed because I was going into it being excited, and that sometimes doesn't help the cause.
Was it one of these things you just saw like King of Fighters like on Netflix, and then you're like, oh.
Well, it was on Netflix, but it was like the old style of Netflix because back in the early days of Netflix streaming. So when Netflix used to have like a really good selection of stuff because there was nobody else out there, so I guess they just collected everything, and it was like, oh sweet, this could be awesome. Oh no, it's just not. Yeah, it reminded me like almost like the same thing of going to see Legend of Chun-Li. Just that you were so excited, like like how could they screw this up, and then.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think that going off that, I do think there is chance for like another a better version of Samurai Shodown.
Yeah.
I honestly think I know it's not Street Fighter, and it doesn't have as much of like, at least in the West, isn't recognized as much as something like Street Fighter or Mortal Kombat. Mm-hmm. But I still think like something like this has a chance to come back and have another like version of an adaptation. I think there's a market for it. I think
so. I mean, there was that second movie, and the funny thing was because at first that was the one I ran across, and I was like, because it was just called Samurai Shodown, like 64, whatever. And I was like, cool, here's the anime and whatnot. I remember just starting it up, and it was that thing where it was just like, you get like 10 minutes into it, and the title card comes up, and it's like, Samurai Spirits 2. Well, whatever. They're probably just doing like a Street Fighter 2, the animated movie thing, because technically there's no Street Fighter 1 animated movie to go before it, so it's I
had the same thought process, yeah.
So I just watched the whole thing, and I was like, oh, well, this sure feels like a sequel, but whatever. And then it's like, oh, that was the sequel, and that one was okay. It wasn't bad. It was still fun, but it kind of reminded me almost like, sort of like Street Fighter Alpha,
Yeah, Alpha was one that I wanted to like a lot more than I did because. That's one where it focuses on three characters that we already see a lot of, and everybody else was just kind of in the background. Maybe they have one or two fight scenes, but then it does this really stupid thing where it makes up a villain. There's no, like, it's not really Akuma, it's some douchebag scientist who studies Akuma and finds a way to make his own Dark Hado. And he's not a character that's in any Street Fighter game. And it's just like, there's this little kid there who just like wants you like, I'm your brother, Ryu. Like, really? Okay. And then it wants you to make you feel bad for the kid when he tries to screw him over and all this and that. I'm like, fuck that kid. I'm glad he's dead.
Yeah, Zach, that part was kind of weird. I mean, when that movie came out, it was one of those ones. It was just like, oh shit, more Street Fighter, and it was at that period where like there's only so many animes. So I remember still just like loving the living daylights out of it when first watching it, and then as time kind of went on, you're like, it's okay. I don't dislike that movie, but it's one of those ones I don't think it's nothing like Street Fighter 2 amazing.
I think like the character designs, the way it looks is really cool, but story-wise, it's just kind of like, really? All right. Plus there's even like the right-hand man walking around messing shit up, and the right-hand man isn't like Birdie or Ronetto or that guy
or whatever, yeah.
The guy from like from Final Fight or anything.
Yeah.
It's just like some weird guy who with like, I don't know, there's just some weird looking buff guy with like, Rick Sanchez hair,
Yeah, exactly. It does have that. There's that Street Fighter Generations movie. Like, it's kind of interesting. I'm not going to say
that's actually the one I have not seen.
It's still, I thought it was actually kind of good. It's only like 40 minutes long, so it's definitely kind of short. But for what it was,
the reason I was like, I'm not paying $30 for a $40 movie.
I think I bought it for like $5, so I wasn't complaining. But no, I think the version I have, it comes with two movies. It's like there's Street Fighter Generations, and then there's Street Fighter Generations Alpha, whatever, something else in there too. So there's two of them, if I'm not mistaken. But that one was kind of interesting too. I know we're kind of getting sort of like the Samurai Shodown episode kind of turned into like, hey, you know what Samurai Shodown reminds me of? Street Fighter and King of Fighters and Virtual Fighter. Why not?
Well, I mean, in all honesty, and I'm not trying to just dismiss this movie, but it is kind of like, it's very bare bones and it's very straightforward, and it's really, it kind of makes you think of other things that came out around the same time, or things similar to it at least, which I'm glad we watched it just because it did return kind of a feeling of nostalgia from a lot of these old OVAs. Now, some of those OVAs are better than others, like Street Fighter 2, the animated movie. But even like the ones that aren't as good, like Alpha or Tekken's not bad. Tekken's interesting.
Yeah, I like the Tekken one. That's a movie I've always wanted to do on the podcast too, because I haven't watched that probably in 20 years.
But like it's like there's the ones that like they all kind of have a very similar kind of vibe. You know what I mean? There's something about them, and I think it's also a lot of these studios just kind of like went with a similar approach on them. Just like, well, they're based on a fighting game, so okay, let's just do the thing where we focus on 2 or 3 characters and everybody else around them just interacts. But I guess the problem with a lot of them is we don't really get much interaction with other characters. They're just kind of there, like, oh, they're there in the background. See the guy, the kabuki dancing guy was there just for a second.
Yeah, exactly. They don't have everything in there. Though at the same time, I always feel movies, always work best almost with fighting games or movies based off fighting games because, in a fighting game, especially in the olden days, you can only get so much story across. I mean, you had what little elements you had in the booklet. Maybe if there's that, like, ending cutscene and whatnot. But I feel like the movie's kind of there to let you know kind of who these characters are, how they sort of act, what their connection is to everybody else in there, and so on. And so that's where I feel like a fighting game movie can really fill in that kind of gap, It's almost like I think about stuff like if there wasn't a Mortal Kombat movie and there wasn't a Street Fighter movie and all this kind of stuff, do you think you would know nearly as much about those characters? Maybe by now because the games kind of were, but let's just say for the most part, and like the whole like from 90s to 2000s, do you think you really would know as much as you do about them without that kind of expanded, adaptation?
No, I think the comics did the best job of adapting Street Fighter by this point, but like the Udon comics. That being said, though, I think the animated movie, even the Jean-Claude Van Damme movie, probably filled in some gaps for people. Even though the Jean-Claude Van Damme movie doesn't always know who the good guys and who the bad guys are, but still.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, like, for the most part, it kind of just adds that story to kind of fill it all in together and whatnot. But I do think Samurai Shodown, like, if you want that classic video game / nostalgia for, like, old, 90s anime and whatnot, it reminds me almost like, it'd be like getting the VHS and popping it in on a sunny day, and you got, like, maybe, like, a thing of Kool-Aid next to you, got your hat on backwards and whatnot, you're sitting on the floor.
Really bringing it home.
really, later on for dinner, you got your Chef Boyardee Sonic the Hedgehog one. I'm trying to really take you into, like...
Just take off your LA gears, because it's not night, no need to light it up.
Yeah, exactly, you know what I mean? That's sort of what this kind of movie definitely gives me the feel of, Like, almost I feel the experience of this movie probably be even better if you could just have the old VHS copy of it. Like, something about that would take you right into the moment where you're supposed to be at.
Well, I was thinking, like, I was just thinking back on this movie, and, like, there are plot points that just kind of pop up for a second. Like, Hattori Hanzo, who's one of the other characters that I noticed, because Hattori Hanzo is just a character from, like, he was a historical figure, but they plop him into different things of media because he's just such a badass that he's just there for a minute, like, yep, I called my ninjas and we all helped out. I kind of slashed the sword on screen once or twice. I'm like, you gave that guy just I'm back here too, kind of,
Oh, well, yeah, I know that, because Hanzo always was one of those characters that stood out to me a lot in there. I don't know, like, for me, I always get kind of like, whenever I see the ninja character in the game, I'm always like, it's like Cage in Virtual Fighter or Hayabusa, like in Dead or Alive and whatnot. I always feel like I kind of gravitate towards some of those characters and so on, So it's kind of weird that he's kind of there and just kind of, yeah, me and the ninja guys, we're making sure that no problems kind of happen, so, it's what I'm here to do. I mean, and that's sort of Samurai Shodown kind of has that thing where it mixes in, like, hey, here's some realistic stuff from history, and then we're gonna throw kind of our fantasy stuff in there too, and kind of mash it together. Because I mean, it even has the Sonny Chiba character guy in there too. The guy who's got the eye patch on and looks, like, God, what the hell is that guy's name?
Well, I guess by this point, 2 Sonny Chiba characters, because Hattori Hanzo from Kill Bill,
yeah,
and the I know what character you're talking about, but his name's escaping me.
Yeah, I just drawing a total blank on him, but he's got like just like Hamaru, he's got that kind of the puffy hair sticking up in the back and so on. But he's in there too. I mean, he's not in there like for a huge part, but he's there. But But yeah, it's like, they got those kind of characters and so on. And I just feel it's like this movie's like one of those ones I feel that could almost benefit from just like an extra 20 minutes. I think just an extra 20 minutes and almost give every other character that little bit of like an intro, I think is what this one's kind of missing. Just like give it that Magnificent Seven Samurai, find all our characters, and in the process we learn something about them all. Instead of having all 6 of them show up and be like, hey, there's the guy we need. There's Hamaru. What's he doing? Oh, he's lounging right there. He's watching Ren and Stimpy reruns.
He's lounging like, oh, his village died. Now he's just running. He's on the rampage. It's it's like they're chasing like a dog that just keeps on getting loose.
It's like a dog that got off the leash.
Yeah, like to get a leash around him. Then he slips out of his collar like, fuck, he's heading for the road.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, God, he's going for the hot dog guy. Watch out.
So, because like that's what it becomes. It becomes them just get the fuck over here, dude. We're trying to help you. No, dude, you got your ass kicked. Yeah, because we were trying to fucking tell you something. Oh, we got to work together. Yeah, you got to work together. And Japan has to all work together now too. And like, I kind of like how the whole bad guys thing, like the lady. Was it Ambrosia was her name, or is it the demon that possessed her or something? Like,
I think so. I will say that's the only thing about Samurai Shodown is the names never have stuck with me, even though I've played the games and so on. Like, I almost think of them like, if you describe who the character is, be like, oh, it's like, the American guy with the dog, or it's the girl with the bird. Like, that always like sticks out to me more than almost their names themselves.
Well, like, she's just like, witness the power of Ambrosia, or some shit. Like, what came to mind, I know this is going to be like a total dad joke, but like, that's where you just start hearing some like progressive rock music playing or something. Like, oh, it's shaking the walls. It's a crazy drum solo.
Yeah, exactly. One of those. You know what? This movie too. If this movie had probably a little bit more budget, you could see it having like, okay, we need to give it that '90s like kind of grunge alternative rock like music, sort of like how Street Fighter 2 has in the American version.
Tekken.
Yeah, that one does too.
That had more like Tony Hawk Pro Skater music in it more than anything else, but still.
But like sometimes there's something there's kind of special about that when you can have like the the animes and have that. I mean, I always think with Street Fighter, I've always kind of wanted to watch the Japanese version just to see what the musical changes is in there. But at the same time, I don't know, like the idea of having Alice in Chains and so on there kind of still puts a smile on my face.
Yeah, I know it's not what they originally intended, but the one that tripped me out is when they had the second wave of Dragon Ball movies put out by Funimation, and they threw down money to like every like from I think Lord Slug and up for a little while. Every movie had like, okay, we're gonna have 1 or 2 big bands, and then a bunch of like dirt cheap bands that we can just throw on the DVD and make some money. Because I remember Cooler's Revenge had like the Deftones on it, and then like some other bands that I've never heard of before. Maybe I'm being a dick. Maybe they're all really big bands, but I don't know of them.
Yeah.
And then Lord Slug had Disturbed, and then I think another one, I don't remember which one, had like Pantera or some shit.
Huh. Okay. Be interesting to see what that exactly was on there. But no, it always kind of makes me laugh because I'll almost even say this, like none of that stuff ever, it doesn't fit whatsoever in my opinion, but at the same time, it's still kind of fun in a goofy way.
Well, even like the end of Tekken, when they start playing The Offspring, Meaning of Life.
Oh, yeah, God, they did have The Offspring in there. See, that's the thing is, it's been so long since I've seen the Tekken movie that, like, I only can really, like, picture, like, bits and pieces of that film.
And there's the part when Anna tries to assassinate, Kazuya, tries to assassinate Kazuya, and they start playing that Stabbing Westward song, that so they would just pick those moments like that. It was kind of like the One soundtrack, sort of.
Yeah, oh yeah, the One is that. Well, the One just like owned up on that more than any other movie around.
It's like, we're not hiding it. Yeah, this is for the angry 15-year-old.
Yeah, we know our target audience,
But like, I will say that I think you're right. Going back to Samurai Shodown, is I think if you did take like another like 20 minutes and just build up the characters, and I know sometimes people don't always like it because they go like, let's just get to the point already, but movies like this, I do kind of like the team build up and how do we and things from when they first meet up in the team and how those things come back around to help them out later in the line. I always do enjoy that. I know by this point it's a formula, but it's just a formula I enjoy in movies.
Yeah, well, yeah, and I feel like when you have a movie that nobody, in a sense, like, I mean, I know they're selling it to like the people who've already played the video games and so on like that, but let's just say we don't have technically like that solid story built around this yet. You're using this movie to kind of bring people in and say, hey, here's the characters, here's this. You need to explain almost like those other 6 characters' backstories along with, actually a handful of the other ones too. I mean, Hamaru is once again the only one that really gets one. Charlotte actually gets more scenes than almost anybody else too, which is almost kind of a bizarre character when you think about it. That would be in there. She always
seemed kind of like one of the off characters, not like a big character, one of the side ones. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's the thing that's kind of weird about it. You would think Nakaru would be the one that would actually be almost what the Charlotte character was, but maybe they're doing that thing where like, well, we got to get our French audience in here, But she probably has the second most amount of lines in this movie, and it's like, yeah, it's one of those characters that you just probably would not expect, It's almost like, even though I would say Cammy by now is more popular, but it's almost like in like the early days, if you would have made Cammy almost like the character instead of Chun-Li. Like, let's say you took Street Fighter V and it's like, oh, it's Ryu, Ken, and Cammy going around. To be like, huh? It's a little bit different, but okay. I mean, I get behind that.
Yeah. Well, there's also there's another example I was going to make with that different character casting and whatnot. You're mentioning You're saying Charlotte being a weird choice and not the other lady. There's an example I was going to make with that. Fuck, it escaped me. Maybe it'll come back to me later. But yeah. Actually, no, I was going to remember what I was going to say.
Okay.
Want to know who Hamaru actually kind of reminds me of? It wouldn't surprise me if he's inspired by this or maybe a different character, but he really reminds me of the I don't remember his name, but in Seven Samurai, there's like that guy who's the hothead, and he has that ridiculously long sword, and he's kind of like the drunken fuck up.
Mm-hmm.
It wouldn't surprise me the least bit if he's like inspired off that guy.
I think so, because there's that Sonny Chiba movie called like Samurai Resurrection, or maybe it's not Samurai Resurrection, but it's one of those movies that probably has like 3 different names, like like every like 70s and 80s like foreign film.
You find out like it had a different name when it came to this country or that country.
Yeah, but there's a lot of the stuff I know that's kind of like in this. I remember reading this before, was that it came from that Sonny Chiba movie. They took a lot of like kind of elements and kind of character designs and so on. And it was like, that's the very big inspirational movie. I think that movie's like 81 or 82 or something like that. It's one of those ones I remember when I was reading up, I was like, oh, I gotta see if that's in one of my Sonny Chiba collections. Like, no, of course it's not. Why would it be? I thought I'd get lucky though.
There was one, that's the thing about, I'm not sure if I have that one. I'm trying to think. No, I'm thinking of a different one. There's another one, like Ninja Resurrection. That's what I'm thinking of. Every so often, you'll buy like those. You'd buy like those 10 packs of martial arts movies. It would have like 3 like there'd be like 1 or 2 very obvious movies that were good on there. Then 1 or 2 like gems. Like, oh wow, I never heard of this, but this one was pretty fun. And then there's like 4 or 5 like straight dog turds on there. There's one, and like those ones I noticed I felt weird having it because they always had so much fucking rape in them. There was like one called Ninja Resurrection, and right off the bat,
Ninja Rape.
Ninja Rape. You won't hear him coming. Yeah.
The tagline on the poster.
It was like right off the bat they introduced some characters like, oh yeah, they're all happy, and then like this like young aspiring ninja out in the woods with this girl, and then he's fucking killed. The girl is then like fucking like she realizes what happened, so she like decapitates herself, but then they bring her back to life, and then at some point she's getting fucking raped. Like, okay, this got fucking weird, and I was thinking like, is that the Sonny Chiba one? They're like, oh wait, no, that's Ninja Resurrection. So I never finished that one. Like, you know what? There's 2 other Bruce Lee movies on here. I'll check those out.
Yeah, that's the thing is they put like those super like almost like grindhousey like ones on there, and that's why I always made that joke before, where it's just like it's a 70s like kung fu movie. Of course, there's gonna be a rape scene in it. Because so many of them have it, and I don't know why. It's just kind of it's in there. But I feel like it's just a '70s thing. I think the reason why it sounds so we're getting like the topic of rape in the Samurai Showdown thing, but I feel like it's one of those ones that like before you could never put that into a movie, and I felt like every director with like in the '70s was like, well, guess what? You know, our parents' generation said we could never have rape in a movie, but we're putting it in every movie, and that's just why you saw so much of it in the '70s. And then by the '80s, they're like, okay, we got it. You know, you got your rape scenes out.
Look, we all love Evil Dead, but we get it, okay?
Yeah, the Evil Dead's kind of like that. That was like the finale of it all. Be like, oh, tree rape? Well, God, where do we go from there?
How do we top tree rape? Japan's like, oh, trust us. No, we're sorry we asked, okay? Don't.
Yeah, exactly. They're just like, we got some new ideas. But,
Samurai Reincarnation, I think is the movie.
Yeah. I think that's what it's called, Reincarnation.
Oh, yeah, this one. Okay, yeah, all right.
See, it's
I haven't seen this one in a long-ass time. I gotta watch this one.
Do you have
again.
that one on of your sets?
I don't. I've seen it before, but a long-ass time ago. I'd like to check that one out.
Because I was trying to fall down the rabbit hole to see if I could figure out where this like Samurai Showdown inspired movie kind of was going. And of course, like, seemed like it was like $20 like on Amazon, and it's like, oh, it's gonna be one of those like hard to find ones, or you're gonna get like a funky copy maybe. Because that's always like the fear too. Is like it's like if I'm gonna pay that kind of money, I want to make sure I'm getting like a real like well put together copy. I don't want one of those like dollar store specials. You know, if I'm paying the dollar store special, like, you know, I'm getting like a movie for like $1 or $2, and it happens to have a bunch of movies on it, and maybe I don't care about like most of them, but there's that one that I really want, and maybe it's not the greatest copy, but I want to see it. It's worth it, but I don't want to pay $20 for one of those kind.
Yeah, no, I feel you.
You know, but like that one looked pretty cool. And it's like one of those ones like almost like leading you down just those. Well, that's the thing is like I almost just felt like Samurai Showdown kind of put me on like, man, I haven't really watched like some samurai movies in a while too. You know, just there's so many of those just great live action ones from like the 50s on up that, you know, are just totally badass. You know, you can go through all kinds of different genres of it.
Yeah, they got Yojimbo on HBO Max. So
yeah, they got a lot of the Akira Kurosawa movies on there, which is pretty neat, I thought.
Yeah, so I'm like, you know what, this put me in the mood for that. Because, truth be told, I actually watched this, like, I started watching the other one, like, a few weeks ago. I'm like, this puts me in a samurai mood, because, I'm not a few weeks, like a week ago. And then, maybe there's, oh, that's the wrong one. And then, like, watch this one today. And, like, I really want to go back and recheck out Samurai Resurrection, as well as, like, I haven't seen, Seven Samurai in a long time. So
yeah, that's another movie too that I haven't seen forever. That'd be kind of fun to see. There's all kinds.
Take 4 hours out of your day for it. Now that I'm thinking back on it, I'm realizing this might, you know, because that's like a 4 hour, 3.5 hour movie. It wouldn't surprise me if the least bit if like Zack Snyder was trying to do like a retelling of Seven Samurai, which was a Snyder cut to some extent.
Yeah, I mean, you could kind of say that it's sort of like it. You know, you're going out, getting the team together. I mean, I think any movie...
part of that movie is building the team.
I mean, I was just about to say, any movie that kind of has, like, the, hey, we're going out and building the team kind of aspect, I think always will have sort of the Seven Samurai, Magnificent Seven feel, you know? I think those kind of are, like, the original... I mean, there's probably something beforehand that, you know... So some guy's like, hey, I wrote that story before, and nobody ever seems to credit my work.
Yeah. I mean, I know it sounds a little arbitrary saying that, you know, but at the same time, I feel like he specifically seems like somebody who would pull from someone like Kurosawa or whatever, you know?
Yeah, exactly. So that could be the case and whatnot. But,
I'm just more thinking the length, and half that movie is building the team, so...
Yeah, exactly. But, it's just a huge number of that. But at the end of the day, I mean... The Samurai Showdown, you know, the motion picture, the original anime movie, or whatever you want to kind of call it, it's still a fun ride. I think it's a neat watch, you know, for any 90s kid, any retro gaming fan, any, like, classic anime one. I think it's definitely worth it, you know. I mean, it's not like you gotta drop everything you're doing and rush out to the store and pick up a copy of Samurai Showdown, the motion picture. Hurry, hurry! No, I don't know if it's necessarily that.
Time is of the essence!
But, you know, it's almost like, for the fighting game fan who's seen Street Fighter, seen the Tekkens, seen the Fatal Furies, and so on down the list, Mortal Kombats, what have you, and you need something else extra, the Samurai Shodown movie. There you go.
It was fun. It was fun. Like, it wasn't like I said, I was more like kind of meh with it, but there are things about it that I really like. I think I just more like a lot of the character designs and would like to see them utilized more, but it makes me actually want to play the game more and kind of learn more about the characters, because I think I could probably learn more from the characters than I did this movie. But that being said, this movie still is definitely worth checking out, and it was fun, especially if you're into old fighting games.
Yeah, so, go check that out. But beyond all that fun stuff, you can go to oldmanorange.com. We got more podcasts, comic books like Pizza Boys. New issue of Pizza Boys, issue 12, out there on Amazon still. Actually, it should be out on, I think, Comixology, actually, by the time this thing's up. So there's that, too.
Awesome.
And then, old animations and all that stuff we have on there. I'm Spencer Scott Holmes.
And I'm Ryan Dunnigan.
And I'll see you some other time.
Later, folks.